Go forward. The front for this. Just for this one, yeah?
Manog Deshe Balgan, Buju, Malayakas and Indigenous Clans. My Indian name is Nanu Kizan, which means hummingbird. Atsokewin Speech. I'm a student from St. Krishnabe High School, and today I would like to talk to you about someone I admire and look up to the most. Ibaba Gebeasin, my dad, Eric Atkinson Sr. I would like to share with you his traditional upbringing and family, the struggles and downfalls in his life, and last but not least, the man he is today after turning his life around. My dad was born in Morris, Manitoba, and raised in Rosa Rapids. He is the youngest son of Guinea Goblik, Molly Thomas, and Gage Yonkid, Herman Atkinson Sr., the man who brought the teachings of the Sweat Lodge, Sundance, Water Drum, and numerous traditions to many reserves across Canada and some of the United States. The way my dad was raised was like what you would hear in the stories from our elders. It didn't matter the era or generation. The traditions in his family were strong, and he was brought up in ways his own parents were. If he was cold, he couldn't just go and turn up the heat. He would walk a few miles into the bush with a slider or wagon to cut wood for the wood stove. To eat and drink, he would take the elves to the river and bring them back for his mom to boil, even to use the bathroom and wash up. In the wintertime, he would cut blocks of ice from the frozen river. If these chores weren't done the day or night before, he would wake up before the sun came up to gather what was needed, or they wouldn't have anything for the day. They lived off the resources of the land and only bought what they needed to provide these resources. As I mentioned, the traditions in his family were strong, and what my grandfather knew, he tried his best to teach his children so that these teachings would not be lost and forgotten, but passed on for many generations. My dad would travel to many reserves for ceremonies, watching my grandfather sing his songs and share his knowledge of our teachings. As my dad got older, he would help my grandfather with his ceremonies, being what we would call a shkabe, a helper. A shkabe is responsible for handing out tobacco, watching the fire, and bringing in the rocks. You see, these teachings were enforced. He knew that it was valuable and that our people's way of life was slowly but surely fading. My dad kept what he learned in his mind and heart, where he knew would be useful later in his life. My dad would also travel to Palos and eventually became a dancer himself. That is when my grandfather passed his whip down to him. The whip is what a whip man carries. It is used in sun dances. In a sun dance, you are fasting for 4 days and 4 nights, sacrificing yourself for the healing of people who need it, like one of your family members and most importantly, yourself. You focus on that tree and pray to it, for that's where your strength comes from. You may feel discouraged and tired, but that's where the whip man comes in. He sings and prays for you, encouraging you while he does it. Just like in a sun dance, he uses that whip to encourage dancers to dance with him. And if you can't for whatever reason, you give him tobacco as an offering. He continued to dance and travel, eventually becoming a champion grass dancer. But for him, it wasn't about competition, being better than anyone else or winning. Just seeing the happiness and joy he brought to people when he danced was his prize, and that was better than any amount of money. He moved from Rosa Rapids to live in Winnipeg and go to school. That's where he met the love of his life, Wabini Wikwe, my mom. My mom didn't understand or have knowledge of our teachings, and my dad showed her. They moved back to Rosa Rapids when my mom met his family and learned a lot from them. But while living in Winnipeg, my dad started to drink, and that way of life followed him for many years of his life. After my grandfather Herman passed in 1990, my dad still continued to dance, but he would barely take part in ceremonies, and soon enough he stopped. The way I see it, traveling to ceremonies was their thing to do together as father and son. Eventually, they started a family together, and it was my kukuma Molly who mentored her. My parents have 5 kids together: Madison Lee, Wade Douglas, myself, Mallory Deneen, and twins, Elvis Douglas and Eric Douglas Jr. He still drank, but it got out of control and he stopped to raise his family. Then in 1998, he lost his mom. He had no parents in this world, and despite that, he still continued to dance. My dad did not dance as much as he used to. He rarely traveled to Palos anymore, only when he was asked. He did that for a good number of years, and around 2002-2004, he stopped drinking altogether. He stopped dancing altogether and started drinking again in 2006. We were too young to remember my dad drinking, but seeing him drunk for the first time when I was 9 years old was awful, because I had never seen my dad in that condition. He was back to his old ways, and with that being said, he lost us, his family. We moved to Winnipeg with our mom while my dad stayed in Ozo. He didn't hear from us for a few months until I called him. I asked him to bring our stuff to my uncle's, and he did. I thought that would be the last time I would talk to him. My mom also started to drink. We lived in my uncle's house out of the hotel for a month or so until we found a place. We were starting new without my dad, or so I thought. One day while driving in the north end, my dad saw my sister coming home from school and gave her a ride. He was surprised because he hadn't seen or heard from any of us in so long. It must have been hard for him to drop off his daughter but couldn't come home with her. Within a week, he showed up at our house. I thought he was going to stay, but he just came for a visit. Not long after that, he came back, drunk. He kept coming back to us and eventually he moved in, but the drinking continued. As time went on, his drinking worsened. He couldn't keep a job for long without alcohol being a problem. The drinking got out of hand. He was in and out of jail. He was in trouble with the cops here and there. My dad even tried to start dancing, but found it hard because of the drinking, so he stopped trying. He continued to drink but tried to keep it under control. He stayed out of trouble and out of jail. It was like he gave up on that traditional lifestyle altogether. In 2002, we moved to Seguin because my grandpa, Dennis, had passed away and we left his house to my mom. He tried to cut down on his drinking, but again it got out of hand. He went back to jail for a while. It was an up and down cycle. He'd have it under control for a while, and then next it got out of hand. Living in Seguin, my dad got to know many people on the reserve. He met a lot of elders who were taught by his dad and people who have their own lodges and ceremonies based on my grandfather's teachings. He started to become friends with these people, even going to ceremonies again. My dad still drank. Sometimes he'd get drunk when we saw him ceremonies because he was hungover, but that was rare. Seeing how much my grandfather meant to these people, he slowly started to cut down on his drinking, but again, he wouldn't control him and he'd give in. He tried to start dancing again, but he thought he was too old, but he tried anyways and ended up giving at it too. The alcohol kept getting the best of him, controlling him, and sometimes he felt the need to drink for no apparent reason. He just wanted to. It wasn't until my younger brother Elvis wanted to do his first year of sun dancing that he truly cut down a lot on his drinking. He didn't binge drink anymore. He started to help prepare my brother for his sun dance, taking him to sweats and ceremonies. He still drank from time to time, but he wouldn't let that get in the way. My brother wanted to start dancing like him, and my dad gave him his old grass dance outfit. Even taught him how to dance and some of his old moves. Seeing his children have so much pride in him made him want to be a better person and stop drinking, but he couldn't because those alcohol demons kept haunting him. He struggled with alcoholism most of his life, and in the past when he kicked that habit, it always came back to him one way or another. While he was drinking for New Year's Eve last year, my older brother was jumped while he was drunk. When my dad found out, I can't even explain how he felt, but I know he felt worthless because he wasn't there to help him. He was passed out at home. My brother could have been killed that night. I don't think my dad realized how his drinking affected us and influenced us that it was okay to drink. But after my brother was hurt, he did. After seeing his son's face when he came home, something inside him clicked and he stopped drinking, him and my mom. From that day on, he didn't touch a drop of alcohol. He was tempted so many times, but he fought that temptation. The damage the alcohol did to his body over the years was visible, and he worked on that. He started being more active, and he would also sit at home, beating and sewing himself a new outfit to dance in. It didn't take him long to finish his outfit. He was done in no time and started dancing again. People were surprised because they hadn't seen the whip man in years, but at the same time, they were very happy. It's beautiful to watch my dad dance. To me, it's like I'm seeing him dance for the first time every time. It amazes me and fills me with so much pride, even tearing me up. Now my dad goes to ceremonies regularly. I've been to some of them, and the knowledge he has is unbelievable. I could sit there for days listening to him talk about the teachings. When he travels to ceremonies, he lights up so many elders' faces. To see him carrying on his dad's traditions makes him feel good inside and brings him to tears. He always shares stories with us about my grandfather, how much of a good man he was, and how my dad reminds him of him. Hearing him sing his dad's song is beautiful. You can hear my grandfather so much in his voice. The sound is strong enough to bring this warmth to your heart and make you want to learn more about our traditional lifestyle. At least to me it does. Presently, my dad is on the path my grandfather left for him and our family. He is currently helping my Uncle Herman with his sun dance. They are doing it in the way their own dad did years ago. An elder once said when you start helping out at ceremonies, being dedicated to it, other sun dances, he started finding these gifts when he went medicine picking and looking for rocks to use in the sweats he attends. He found a rock with a handprint engraved onto it and another rock that looks like the head of a horse on one side and on the other side, the head of a rattlesnake, our plan. My dad is walking the red road now. They say when you do that, you have a good heart and everything you do comes from that. He has not yet finished his healing journey. He is only just beginning. It feels good to see my dad sober and keeping on with the traditions of my grandfather. Honestly, the love he has for his kids and family is strong enough for him to walk away from alcohol for good. I pick up where he left off many years ago. Dancing and going to ceremonies. I love my dad and everything he does for us. I can't even begin to express my gratitude to him for showing us these teachings. Without him, we wouldn't have known this beautiful way of life. My dad is a perfect example of how I started to turn your life around. Regrets for listening.